If you're watching this, then it has happened. The Dakota Universe heroes are officially back in the DC universe. And I, for one, couldn't be more excited because we just read the new history of the DC universe, the Dakota Incident one shot, and it's better. It's somehow better than I imagined it would be. And there's a lot to dissect here, and there's a lot of moving parts. There's four different creative teams in the same issue, and there's a lot to chew on. So we're gonna take it bit by bit, and to discuss it with me is a returning guest, friend of the show, my man Morgan Hampton. How are you today, sir?
Hello. I'm doing great, man. I'm really happy to talk about this. This is something we've been working on for a minute, so it's nice that it's out now and we can actually have a dialogue about it. And yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah, I mean, before we even get into the issue, I was just reflecting before we got on just about your career journey. Like to go from, obviously you had comic work that you have done before, but to go from the Milestone Initiative to doing stuff for DC Power to writing a cyborg book, but kind of always having this milestone stuff top of mind, even in the DC Power, I think 2024 hardcover, your intro was just about you did a forward and it was about kind of continuing the legacy of Milestone, even through work at DC with these other characters. And
Right.
so for now, you to be at this point where you are bringing the Milestone characters back into the DCU, it's got to feel great to be able to be a
Man,
part of that.
truly, like I've literally, as a fan, I've been waiting for this since the last time we saw Milestone, which I guess was the New 52 static, right?
Mhm.
Like it's been some dark days, and then we had the Milestone returns. I remember when that came out, I was upset because I was like, I should have been part of this.
Mhm.
Like I was just about to get there, but I wasn't quite there yet. And then a couple months later, they announced the Milestone Initiative. I applied, I got in, and yeah, the rest is history. It feels incredible to be here to usher in these characters back to the DCU, and I feel a great sense of pride. Like I can genuinely say this is something I've been wanting since I was like a freshman in high school, man. Like it is so cool to be here, and I'll even do better too with thinking about this idea of like legacy and serendipity and all that. I knew this already, but I didn't actually like look it up and see how close it was. But I'm basically the same age as Milestone. Hardware number one, which was the first Milestone book to come out, came out on Wednesday, February 3rd or February 25th, sorry, 1993. I was born that following Monday on March 1st, 1993. Like we're both Pisces from 93, man. Like it feels incredible to be here. We're going to be celebrating our 33rd birthday this year. Like I feel such a kinship with these characters and with this universe, man. It feels great.
Yeah, nah, that's dope. That's dope. I was already alive and kicking for like 2 years, but still, like it's crazy for me to witness this. Like when I started collecting Milestone, it was like this relic of the past. Like, oh
Yeah.
wow, there was 4 years where we were getting these really cool black comics. They faded into obscurity. And for me, I was totally fine just collecting these artifacts. Like, all right, cool. Well, that was a thing. I want to get as much of that as possible.
Right.
And then they announced the relaunch and the rise of like the Milestone Returns universe, like just kind of coincides with my channel in crazy ways.
Mhm.
And so to be able to document this is just wild. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's crazy. But you mentioned it. Like we've had Milestone in the DC universe, a couple times over the years. So the first time was a brief crossover, back in what, 94 this
Yeah.
would have been.
December.
And it's Worlds Collide. And we had a bang baby, a metahuman, who basically is like melding realities. And so for a brief time, the Superman family of characters gets to visit the Milestone universe and vice versa. And they figure it out, get the worlds back separated, and no one is any the wiser that it happened. And then, back around the time of Infinite Crisis, if I'm not mistaken, we get there is some I won't get into like behind the scenes stuff, but somehow there's a way that the Milestone characters enter the DCU after have being, a completely self-contained universe for a time. And of course, Milestone had gone away back since like 1997.
Yeah.
But back in 2010, we got this. This is the Milestone Forever two-issue series. And while basically it's a book full of epilogue issues, short stories, the overall theme is that Dharma from the Shadow Cabinet, who basically is like the god of the Milestone universe, he just kind of does a little like hubbubaloo, mushes the Milestone worlds and DC worlds together, and it's like, okay, cool. Everybody's in the same place. What they do with it is what they do with it. And of course, Dwayne McDuffie is writing Justice League around this time. So the Shadow Cabinet ends up crossing over with the Justice League for a little bit. We got a few Brave and the Bold team up style issues with Hardware and Static. And there was one more, but I'm forgetting who it was. But yeah, so we've had Milestone in the DCU. Static ends up joining the Teen Titans for a little bit. And then, like you said, when the New 52 happened, we got this thing that I'm glad we don't have to talk about anymore. Just leave it. Listen, great character design, though. I love the costume. Love the costume. And, when that 8 issues ran, we thought that was the last we saw of
Yeah.
Milestone.
Yeah.
And so, legal drama, whatever, 2021, we finally get a brand new relaunched Milestone universe. And it's been a nice 3-4 years of Milestone stories. But it's kind of been laying dormant since Shadow Cabinet wrapped up. I'm curious to know how long in the works this was, this return to the DC universe.
Um, officially, what is this, February?
Mhm.
Officially about 10 months.
Yeah.
Conversations have been had, I'd say, the past couple years, but nothing was concrete. It was more of me being like to the people in charge, like, we can't just let this, go back in the vault, right? Like, we got to do something, right? And it
Mhm.
was just me like knocking on the door and like annoying people. I'm sure other people were doing that too. But officially, us working on this book, I'd say I first got the email that um somebody, actually, no, it wasn't even an email, it was in person. Um, Marquise showed me a like a PowerPoint pitch deck thing about this thing called the Dakota Incident, and he was like, "I want to get your thoughts on this." This was probably actually last February,
Mm.
and I was like, "This sounds really cool." And like, the crux of what this book is being like something happened in Dakota, and it was kind of swept under the rug, and most people don't know about it. That was the essence of what that was. And he was like, "Yeah, keep this in your mind. If you've got any ideas, let me know. But this might be something we're going to try to do." And then fast forward 2 months later, I get an email saying that we're actually going to do this. At that point, Nick and Joe and I both kind of came on board um, to have discussions. And then Marquise was like, "I wanted to probably do 4 stories. We need a fourth person." And I was like, "How about Steph?" Like, I think that would be perfect. And he was like, "Actually, yes, that's perfect." So from there, it was pretty consistently. We were meeting once a week actually for a minute, because we had to figure out logistically how we were going to do this before we sat down and start crafting the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a long-winded way of saying about 10 months
Yeah.
officially. Yeah.
So, I mean, it feels, you talk about serendipitous, but it feels like really advantageous that we just had the new history of the DC universe and,
Yeah.
Mark Waid kind of helping to streamline continuity a bit
Yes.
after we had the whole Infinite Frontier era and kind of condensing things down. Um, and I'm curious as to like this idea that something happened in Dakota, like, because if you read the story, and I'm gonna spoil it, it's been out a few days, there's full spoilers, but there's a very interesting way that we handle not seeing the Dakota universe heroes for however long it's been. And it fits really neatly into a specific era of DC continuity. But Was that something you guys planned with Mark before he mentioned it? Like, how does that work?
Before he mentioned it in his new history of the DCU.
Right.
Yeah, so I'll actually say Mark was part of these meetings that we had.
Mm,
At the time, like I said, this was back in April, so these his books weren't coming out yet, but he was like maybe 2 or 3 issues into it from
mhm,
his point of view, and he helped us figure out where to place it in the timeline that would fit both what we know about like 93 milestone and where that's supposed to be when Worlds Collide did happen,
mhm,
where it would fit there, and also where it would fit on the DCU part, that can justify this disappearance.
mhm.
And we landed on the era when Luther was president, and it kind of all fell into place right after that because everything makes sense at that point.
Right.
And then I'd say from him helping us out and us now knowing that we're doing that this book, that's when they added those milestone pages to his new history of the DCU thing to kind of start teasing the breadcrumbs out that like no, milestone is actually part of the DCU. We're putting it in this as the history. Like Icon really got here in 1839 in our universe. So let's get that conversation going. And I remember when that issue came out, people online were freaking out, and we just couldn't say anything because I was what back in like September or something.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah. It was like, because the big question was, when you see Icon pop up there, he's in the
hmm
classic costume. He's not in the
yeah,
Milestone Returns costume. And so then we're like, okay, so old Milestones continuity, like
yeah,
what's happening here?
yeah,
Um, and for me, it doesn't really matter which continuity it is. Like I like that it's in there,
hmm
but like any excuse to get the classic Mark Bright Milestone or Icon cape,
hmm
that
yeah,
works for me. Like
yeah,
whatever we had to do to get that cape back. So,
absolutely, yeah.
so for the record, this is the 1993 Dakota universe kind of meshing in the
Yeah,
DCU.
it's a little tough to pin down,
Mhm.
but I would absolutely say it's closer to the Milestone 93 than it is to Milestone Returns. I
Okay.
think I think especially with how Milestone Returns was kind of a reboot
Mhm.
of sorts, um, it feels a little separate to what this is.
Mhm.
Of course, with the new kind of origin for the Big Bang, and then the different outfits and all that type of stuff. But it's not. I don't think it's safe to say that it's 100% 93 milestone either. I
Mhm.
think the best way that I can describe it is, are you a Star Wars fan at all?
A little bit. I
Okay, I
watched
don't
the
know if
movies.
I don't know if you remember when Disney first acquired Star Wars,
Mhm.
13, 14 years ago. And they basically came out and said the only things that are canon are the original six movies and the Clone Wars.
Right.
Everything else is legends. But
Yes.
then in the 13, 14 years since then, they have plucked things out of legends and remade them canon, like Grand Admiral Thrawn being a very big aspect of that, right? So I think that's a way that we can explain version of the milestone or the Dakota heroes are. It's very close to 93,
Mhm.
but there are some things like that just didn't happen. I think it's probably safe to say Worlds Collide, that original one, didn't happen.
Mhm.
Because why else? How else could you explain all the things that we did in this book? I think it's also probably safe to say that initial in the mid to late 2000s also didn't happen.
Mhm.
But I think anything else outside of Milestone Returns, I think anything else is fair game in terms of like certain storylines, certain characters meeting from the original Milestone. Static's original costume. I think we can say that's something that he wore before he upgraded to the one that he's got now.
Mhm.
And I think us figuring out hard line what's canon and what's not is just to be determined. You know what I mean? But I think it's safe to say that it's like a large chunk of it is 93 milestone, but we're going to be plucking things out that won't fit, and then certain things will, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think the biggest sort of question mark, it feels like in this world, Dharma doesn't exist. And that just because Dharma has like such like godlike powers, it's
Yeah.
like in the OG milestone, he's responsible for the Big Bang, or at the
hmm
very least, like he can kind of stand and watch time and intervene. And so
Yeah.
it's like, I guess there's in a way he could exist still, and maybe this
Yeah.
is just the best
Yeah.
possible
Absolutely
path
could.
forward, you know?
I think that's the best way. That's a good way of looking at it. Like, like I said, like we didn't confirm or deny if he was around in this book. We only had 40 pages anyway, right?
Right.
But just because we didn't doesn't mean that he's not. And I think that's the best way to look at what this version of Milestone is. And it's really just to be determined what things are going to be exactly the way you remember them or not. And like you said about Dharma, like this could very well be the best opportunity
Mhm.
for these characters was to let this happen. Sometimes it's about, letting the bad thing happen so the good thing can happen in the future, you know.
Facts. Facts. So now I want to get into this issue
Yes.
because, like we said, it's written in four parts. There's an intro and epilogue by Nick Draper Ivey. Edwin Galman does the art on that segment, and it's amazing. And that's kind of like the framing sequence where we meet Beacon, who, if you're not familiar, Beacon is Rocket's son, Amistad, aged up a little bit. He becomes a hero in the future. But of course, he's second generation Dakota Universe hero. So he's inspired by Static and Hardware and even his mom, of course. And so, he's got that going for him. And something just doesn't seem right. Like he's kind of on a mission and kind of starts fading away. And it's like there's a temporal disturbance. And all of a sudden, he starts going back in time. And now he's seeing multiple versions of this reality. And so we get, a sequence by Joe Illidge where he basically just kind of explains the world that was like, and it's a great primer. If you've never read a Milestone book, you
Yeah.
can read that, those few pages and pretty much know everything you need to know. And
Yeah. And,
then,
and Joe also it's I mean, yes, he killed that. And he was also like the perfect one for that story with his storied milestone
yeah,
history, like
mhm.
he really knocked that out the park.
Yeah, no, he's like the Milestone encyclopedia, you
Yeah.
know, like, and, he was an editor there for so long, but he's kind of been like the steward
Mm,
of it for
agreed.
so long, and so it
Agreed.
makes sense for him to tell that story with Val Delandro. It gives you that classic
Yeah.
vibe with the spot blacks, kind of like John Paul Leon in the OG Static book.
Hmm.
So it just feels good. I don't know. This is just great editorial
Yeah.
decision making.
Yeah.
Being
Shout out
honest,
Marquise and Brittany Holzer.
yeah, man. And so got the issue here in front of me, but we get that sequence, and then we get a sequence. Like I said, this is when this timeline starts to diverge,
Hmm.
and we get Stephanie, who is writing a sequence where basically the Suicide Squad comes in and tries to stop the Dakota heroes, for reasons that I guess I won't all the way spoil, but it's fun to see the Suicide Squad
Hmm.
versus the Milestone heroes. And while that's going on, it's like, all right, we got to call in the big guns. That's not really working. And like you said, this is happening in a timeline where Lex Luthor is the president. They've got the Superman project, where they're trying to, basically create metahumans. And the big retcon or the big revelation is that Edwin Alva was, a part of that. And so he's responsible for the Big Bang in this timeline, through the development of the Q juice and all that. And basically, the Dakota heroes have been allowed to exist because, like, Alva is kind of keeping them in check, at least to the greater United States. But when something happens to Alva, that's when Lex Luthor steps in and it's like, all right, now we got to get control of this. Like, we can't have just all these metahumans. And I thought something that was really cool is like they make a point that Dakota has like the largest metahuman per capita rates because of the Big Bang. And
Hmm.
I wouldn't have even thought of that, but like whose idea was that?
To put that in there,
Yeah.
me.
Nice.
I think that was in my story, right? The per capita
Yeah.
part. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. It was something. It wasn't really a conversation we had that part, but it was something once like I was writing that scene, like it justified everything that we had had a conversation about, right?
Mm,
This is exactly why Luther came in here. This is too much to leave unchecked.
right.
Black and brown people, a whole city of them with these powers? Absolutely not. And yeah, it just that's one of those things that when I was writing it, because we went through the whole process of pitch to outline and a couple revisions of the outline and then to script. And it was just like while I was writing Luther's dialogue, that just came out. And I'm like, actually, yeah, this fits, you know.
Mm,
Um, Yeah.
Nah, it's fly. And
Thank
then
you.
there's one line in here, and again, kind of trying to take it, page by page, not skip a whole bunch,
Yeah.
right? But uh, Jefferson Pierce is the
Yeah.
Secretary of Education,
Yeah.
which is great. Jefferson Pierce is Black Lightning, and
Right.
of course, you can't talk about Static without somebody bringing up Black Lightning. You
Right.
know, that's they won. That's they won. But
Yeah.
you, you know, um, and so there's a really dope moment where
Mhm.
Static and Rocket, are kind of left on the outside of this meeting. And basically there's a meeting between Lex Luthor and Icon and Hardware being like the sort of adults in the room. And it's
Right.
like, listen, you're gonna sign away your rights to be superheroes in this town. Like, we're taking over. Like, either, you can get down or lay down, lay down. It's basically
Right.
the deal. I was joking with Nick and I'm like, yeah, they're signing the Sokovia Accords. Like, that's what this is.
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially.
you know. And but out on the outside, Static and Rocket are just kind of like holding court, and they see Jefferson Pierce, and he's kind of like soft for them,
Right.
like, you know what, like, I get what you're doing, like, I've been in this position before, and I won't stop you. I won't try to stop you if you like buck against the system real quick.
Yeah.
Um, but my favorite line in your part was when Rocket says to Black Lightning, "You're in here for the same reason we are. They don't value you."
Mhm.
And I gotta ask, dog, like, maybe this is just me reading into this book a little too much, but it absolutely feels like they're all in the one shot because they're not quite valued. Is that just me being me?
You mean like, can you ask that a different way? I just want to make sure you're asking what I think you're asking.
Okay, all right. So there very much is a point, like, for
Mhm.
Rocket and talking to Jefferson, like, listen, like, you are here on this mission trying to get us to comply. They sent you on a dummy mission because they don't care, how you get out of this or if you make it out of this, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same reason we're here. Like, they don't value us. They're trying to
Mhm.
take over our position. Cool, right? And so yeah, it's a great line in story. But for whatever reason, like, meta context, it just felt like you are in this one shot for the same reason we're in this one shot. And it's like they don't care about you outside of this.
Yeah. I think from a certain aspect, yes, that's what I was trying to do. I don't think it was necessarily from a, I wasn't trying to say you're a February special or
Uh-huh.
exclusive. I wasn't trying to say that. I was trying to say I think that Black Lightning is not respected, I think, from a meta contextual point of view. I know
Hmm.
there's a lot of fans for Black Lightning, particularly look like me and you,
Yeah.
but I think he also could be viewed better than he is. And
Hmm.
I think that's what that page was for me, was to kind of explore within the meta text of like, we don't, even sometimes as fans, respect Black Lightning. And maybe it's because he tries to toe the line a little too much because he's an older guy. Maybe he's a little bit too much in the middle, and he's not as radical as like these two kids that he's in the room with.
Hmm.
And that's why I wanted to use that page to explore that he's kind of aware of that
Hmm.
himself. Um, and that's why he's not going to stop them. But he's also like, I've tried to play within the system and you can't do that.
Right.
So it may be too late for me, but it's not too late for you. And I think I really wanted to kind of do that to kind of get Black Lightning to be looked at in a better light in the current like climate that we're in. Because I do think
Mm.
he gets like a little bit of flack sometimes of being, like I said, a little bit too down the middle because he's the dad, the principal. He wants to do everything the right way. He's kind of the epitome of like, as I'm sure you've heard, it's like you've got to be more than perfect
Hmm.
as a Black person to get to not even get ahead, but to be where everybody else is. I think Black Lightning is very representative of that.
Yeah.
And this was a moment of him internalizing that, I think. So that's kind of what the meta text for me was.
Yeah. And Rocket's a great person to deliver that, right? Just with her
Yeah,
history of giving that to Icon for
yeah,
all this time.
yeah,
And so it's like, of course she's gonna point out, like, yeah, nah, you trying to play both sides, homie.
yeah. Can't do
Like,
that.
right. But it's also fun, like, seeing Black Lightning go through that.
Hmm.
he had the new history of the DC universe, or the other history of the DC universe is what it was
Yes.
called.
Great book. Yes.
And that first issue is like him making the same accusation, against John Stewart. Like,
Hmm.
you caping for these superheroes, none of them are coming to the slums to like deal with these problems. And so it's funny to see like Black Lightning go from that
Yeah.
to sort of uh beacon of the establishment.
Yeah.
you know, the yeah, I almost named a politician. I won't do
Well,
that.
I guess technically, if you can actually look at the thread, like we mentioned about timeline, like I don't remember with the other history of when that's supposed to be taking place, but
Mm,
I think in my head canon, this story technically would take place canonically before that story.
mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because the President Luther for us in real life was 25 years ago.
yeah,
I don't, it gets tricky with comic book timelines in universe, but I think it's safe to say it's been a minute since he's been the Secretary of State. So I
gotcha.
think, this is part of one of those things that maybe helped him realize like working within the system is not as beneficial as you think it might be.
Mm, that's fresh. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That's dope though. So yeah, so that's one of my favorite lines in the book. But
Thanks.
then you also like you got a lot of F around and find out here. Because on the next page is where Icon just threatens to go nuclear on
Yeah.
Lex Luthor. And I love that it's just established like, yo, like I can go there if I need to go there. Like, you are aware of this, right? And Lex gets out of it the way Lex gets out of everything, of course. But I'll skip some stuff just to leave something for you guys to go and read. But my other favorite moment in this book is when Static and Rocket do finally enter the room and they're kind of realizing the gravity of what's going on and how they're not going to get out of this situation. And Static is the
Yeah.
last one to really take that on. And, Lex says something slick to recognize or to reveal that he knows everything about Virgil. And there is this moment where Virgil's eyes just get huge and he's looking through those goggles like, dang. And it's just like that moment right before defeat. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. How did you even script that moment?
Man, it was tough. I had my story was, I mean, all of our stories obviously were hard. We had a lot to do with the 10 pages that we were individually given.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a particularly hard time because mine was the negotiation, right?
Yeah.
We had to spell everything out clear. We had to make sure everyone had their objections in there as well. And we also, for me, my big thing is always emotion, right? I'm like, how do I get to the heart of the emotion here?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the way that I outlined it was from an action standpoint or from a in the scene standpoint, we were going to be getting Static story.
Mm-hmm.
Through the narration, we were going to be getting a little bit more of Rocket's story. So I think it was important for me that this was that we had some internal thought there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think with Static, my end for him for this story was making the realization that like the Big Bang, like I mentioned in the thing, or like Lex mentioned, it created the biggest or the I don't remember what the quote was, but the highest per capita for metahumans in the country. But for the characters that we're following, at least the big four, uh, Static is the only Bang Bang. So he has got a different connection to this sense of agency that this city has been given than the other three characters in this group. And it would be not that it's not a big deal for them. Obviously, like you said, Icon's ready to go nuclear, Hardware is ready to join him. Rocket's not ready to give anything up either. But like for Static, this is almost more of a sense of an identity for him that he's giving up than it
Mm-hmm.
is anything else for the others. So scripting that part was it was it was rough because like this is heavy stuff. But also like I said, me loving getting to the heart of the emotion, like that was probably in a weird way my favorite thing to write. Was that scene.
Yeah. It's and your artist on this part is Fico Osio,
Yeah.
with colors by Ulysses Areola, who they, by the way, did the Black Lightning series, miniseries last year.
Yes.
And it's what's great that they get to, draw Black Lightning again,
Hmm.
in a different way, completely different way. But I really love the colors here. Like the
Yeah.
colors kind of remind you of that OG Milestone watercolor that
Hmm.
Noel kind of pioneered
Yes.
there. But yeah, no, you're right. You don't leave emotion off the page because from the time Static realizes he's given up this identity to, the last we see of Rocket, it's like everyone is just carrying this
Yeah.
weight. And then, we kind of um transition to the outro of the book, if
Hmm.
you will, with and it gives very much like DC Rebirth special. Now,
Hmm.
um, and for those of you who are familiar with that, then you'll know why it makes sense when you read the book. But I guess you each have 10 pages. How do you work together to like who builds the overall story or how does that go?
Yeah. We all did that together. That's what those weekly meetings were before we ever sat down to start writing. We had to figure out beat by beat what this story was going to be, and then what each individual story was going to be. Um, and then we kind of in the middle of it is when we figured out the beacon aspect of the framing
Mhm.
device. Because Nick, not yeah, Nick was working on Batman Static Beyond, and that's a character in that,
Yeah.
and we wanted to keep again. Remember, I told you about how like some things are canon and some things are may not be. We really wanted to keep Raquel having Amistad as being a big, like her reason for like maybe not fighting as hard to
Hmm.
keep going is like, well, I've got a kid now. I've got a kid on the way. I got to look out for somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, so we did all of that together. And then once we figured out what each individual story was going to be, then we went our separate ways to outline and write those stories. But even with that, we would still give notes on each other's stuff along the way. But yeah, we all collectively figured it out together first.
Dope.
Yeah.
Dope. Yeah, nah. I don't know, man. When I heard about this one shot, I was like, all right, cool. It's a one shot. We'll see what happens. Right?
I know you've been a little trepidatious. I
Yeah.
understand though. I understand.
Listen, man, it's been a long time coming, but
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You never know what's going to happen after these things. Of course, a lot of it's going to be determined by sales and just
Right.
editorial direction. Like there could be a new regime that's like, we're going to do Trinity Comics and that is it,
Right.
right? But if this is the last we see, that's amazing. We know that it's not quite the last we see because Static's already made an appearance, in Titans,
Yeah.
and it appears he's going to be at the very least in the next story arc.
Hmm.
Now, I won't ask you things you can't answer,
You
but
can. I just may not answer.
I guess that's fair. That's fair. Um, I guess with this project, I mean, I've talked to everyone involved, and it feels so much like a passion project. Like everyone kind of is treating these characters like they're babies.
Yeah.
But really, what you're doing, what we're doing, what you're doing is kind of releasing, these characters into a wider universe for other people to access and play with and use in
Yeah.
their stories and stuff like that. I guess, like, what are you hopeful to see come from this?
Yeah, I think that's just it. I think that's where, there were outside reasons as to why we didn't get too much of that the first time, but that's what was really cool about the first time that we had the milestone characters in the DC universe, right? Like uh Static was a part of the Titans briefly.
Hmm.
I remember, I don't remember if it was part of Dwayne McDuffie's Justice League, but like Superman interacted with Icon.
Hmm. That
Like
was.
these are things that I think this book sets up. I think I DM'd you last week when you were talking a bit about this. I
Hmm.
think it was when Static made his return and the kids are all fight. And the theme of this book from day one has been like integration
Hmm.
and like how do we push this forward and not just repeat everything we've done before. So yes, the goal is for us to start to see some of this stuff outside of a Static book or an Icon book. Like, let's have these characters pop up in a team up. with another character, or one of the villains from Dakota can be, someone that pops up in something. Like, it should feel very much a part of the DC universe and not separate. Like, I think that's the goal. Of course, that's TBD as well. Like, and there's a extra hurdle to jump through, because, like, even though, like, it is now within the universe of DC, like, everything still has to be signed off because these are licensed characters and stuff like that. So, well, it remains to be seen, but that is everybody's goal. I think everybody that worked on this is to see how we can keep facilitating these characters to pop up in other places in the universe.
Got you. So I'm just gonna ask the nerdy question because you
Yeah,
opened the door to it, right? Because I'm curious. Like it feels like speculation has been that the Milestone characters couldn't be integrated into the DCU for whatever legal or contractual reasons. Like if it's we don't know what it is with the ownership. Like
yeah,
the new Milestone deal has not been made public in the way that the old one was. But especially when you talk about like TV and film and stuff, everyone just assumes, well, DC doesn't own that, and so they can't exploit it. You won't see it in James Gunn's universe
right.
anytime soon. But it seems like this came together relatively easily. Like,
Yeah.
how hard was it to make this happen?
Um, I can't speak too much, not because I don't want to say anything, but, like, I
Yeah.
don't know, all the ins and outs of how difficult it might have been. Like, that was an editorial thing of
Mhm.
parsing those conversations. Like, I feel like all that stuff was dealt with by the time they brought us all together, right? Of course, we did it go through multiple rounds of, like, every time we would do an outline or whatever, we would bring it to them, Reggie and Dennis, and they would have to approve it and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
I don't know how difficult it was, because, yeah, it does seem like it came together pretty fast. I think a big chunk of it is, to be perfectly frank, and this is not trying to be malicious in any way, but I think if you just look on paper, the Milestone returns as a whole could have been more successful. So
Mhm.
I think it was Joe Illidge doing the Shadow Cabinet, which kind of felt like an end to that universe.
Mhm.
Um, and it left the door open to do something different, because you don't want to just put those characters back on the shelf now. And then I think it's just the right timing of, like, everything going on at DC right now, everything feeling new and fresh and fun. And that was probably part of the conversation as well. And then just take somebody to ask a question. And I feel like that's what Editorial did. And they were like, yeah, let's play ball.
Dope. Dope. So, I can only hope that this means that maybe, some doors are open elsewhere, right? I don't
Yeah,
know.
same.
There was that animated movie they were saying we are going to get for a while,
Yeah.
and there was that static live action movie. Quite honestly, I'm more excited about the animation than anything else.
Hmm.
Um, that's just because I'm a cartoon nerd, but, you know, I just, I think it will be dope, especially in the times that we're in. I think that,
Yeah.
you know, um, I don't know, this is where I stop being interviewer and just talk. But for me, when I heard about this one shot, I was like you said, I was a little trepidatious
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, they're First of all, our yeah, like we knew this was coming,
Mhm.
but that DCKO surprise was quite the surprise. There was no
Yeah.
hint, nobody knew, and so it's like, okay, we're preparing mentally for the Dakota incident that's going to explain, and they're going to come in the DCU, and we know that, intellectually, but it's just like emotionally, okay, we'll see what happens,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then you get that reveal in DCKO, and it's like, oh, Static is on the Titans before they explain this stuff. So now this explanation, there's so much more weight on it. But like in
Right.
that in between time, my initial reflex is just like, I don't know if I want these characters in DCU.
Mhm.
Like I'm rereading OG Milestone. I was just reading Hardware
Mhm.
a couple weeks ago, and even like the story or the experience that makes Hardware decide, like, you know what, I'm not just fighting for vengeance, but I'm fighting for justice. It's like a crazy story that like you I cannot believe is in a comic book,
Yeah.
right? But it's just so hard hitting, and it's like Milestone. That was what they did then.
Right.
Like they were
Right.
telling stories that pulled no punches, that feel like they could only exist in a separate universe, right?
Mhm.
Like that, doesn't necessarily have to be editorialized by some big corporation, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And so it's like when I think about, all right, well, how do these characters exist alongside Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and of course, since the stars are Static and Rocket, it's
Mhm.
like now they got to exist alongside like Beast Boy and
Right.
Tim Drake.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
Yeah.
how does this gritty texture fit with like what we expect to see as like so bright and hopeful for the DCU? And so I think for me, it's like that's why I'm like, all right, I'd rather it stay over there.
Yeah.
But to your point, if we're just talking about posterity, like
Mhm.
if the choice is we get these characters or we don't, then I'd love to explore what it looks like to try
Yeah.
with that.
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, too, and this is probably going to be a case by case basis, which we already see in comics in general, but the people who are going to have these characters in their books, if it's not a static book or an icon or a rocket book, if you're going to have these characters in your books as a, let's say static on the Titans, like I feel like you got to care about these characters. You
Mhm.
got to really bring, I think, an extra level of care because of the history of those characters. Like you should feel a sense of responsibility. And I don't know if I'm being perfectly honest with you, everyone is probably not going to approach it that way.
Yeah.
So I think be prepared for that. But yeah, going back to posterity's sake, like I think the importance of just having these characters back and being able to play in the sandbox, at least for now, is enough,
Yeah.
And then it's just like, okay, when we get that ongoing, that person's got to love these characters too, you know?
Yeah. And I think what's good about the characters, like it's a fully fleshed out and lived in world,
Yeah,
which is made new. So it's like it's not like everything is going to be retreading. Like whoever gets these characters next gets basically a clean slate to work with.
yeah,
But just in their characterization, there's such a diversity in tone, right?
hmm,
Like you get a lot of political suspense and like social commentary in Icon, right?
hmm,
Like if you want to go dark and edgy, you want to have like the Batman gruff character, you got Hardware,
right.
you've got Static, to be that sort of bright spot. And if you really want to go dark, like maybe you'll do a Blood Syndicate book. I don't know how the Blood Syndicate exists in the 2020s, like straight up, but
Yeah,
they are there. And so I
hmm,
think it is also cool because I don't know, especially like I'm thinking about something like DC next level, right? Where the the marketing text is like, hey, these are creator driven stories. We just asked them what they wanted to do. And
yeah,
so it's like somebody picks it up under a banner like that, and it's like, all right, I want to do next level Blood Syndicate. It's
yeah,
like, hey, you know what you're getting, you know what you signed up
absolutely,
for, you know.
absolutely.
So that that's exciting. The prospect of that is exciting.
Yeah,
And whatever it takes, right? Like
yeah,
we just got this. I just got
hell
my action
yeah.
figure,
I gotta
right?
get that, man. I gotta get that.
Yeah, man, you got to. You got to. I got a link. You can go to comicsaredope.com/action,
Okay, nice.
right? If you've not placed an order on McFarlane before, it'll get you $10 off.
Oh, hell yeah.
Um,
I'm gonna do that after this call.
nice, nice. I think I'll get some points. That'll get me like $10 off my next order. I even
Nice.
ordered I even ordered this one. And
I mean, yeah, I would too. I mean, going back to just like we just want what's out, give us
yeah,
something and we'll take it.
yeah,
Of course, we want the best that we can get, but sometimes when you can't get anything, you'll just take what's there.
right, right. So
I
I
want to say too, I think something that I'm really particularly proud out about this book is something I brought probably to the first meeting that we had. Because when I got the call for this, it was like I felt the weight of responsibility the second I read that email. I was like, oh, this is huge, and I'm being asked for a seat at the table. I gotta show the hell up, right?
mhm,
And this is before we knew anything about what the story was gonna be. I started reading, I'm insane. I started reading a book on quantum physics because the Big Bang is based in quantum physics. And I started reading poetry. And I was reminded about this poem that I read in undergrad. It's a Langston Hughes poem, and I brought it up in my story.
mhm,
It's called Harlem, and it is very much about the Harlem Renaissance. and about how for a very brief time, or we can even make a sinner's reference, right? Like for one night we were free,
Mhm.
right? That is the meta text that is existed for this story since day one. That when you look at the Milestone universe, it was 4 years where we had something.
Mhm.
And even though it came back in other iterations since then, those 4 years were still, I'd say, were the best years.
Yeah.
And for reasons beyond, any individual person, it was it ended. And it was a dream that we had, but it was a dream deferred.
Mhm.
And I think that is something that became a theme for this book. That's basically what the story is. For a brief moment, we had our own place, we had our own city, we had our own heroes, and then it was taken away from us. And I think that's really powerful. It's unfortunately, especially like Steph's story, but just the whole thing about what happens to the Milestone characters in this book, it is unfortunately very relevant to what we're going through literally today. And like it was relevant when we were writing it because we were obviously pulling on current events, but it just happened to get even more relevant as we've been working on, getting this book to the finish line the past month or two. Like it feels special. It feels like you said, everybody who worked on this book, top down, not just the creators, editorial as well. We all love these characters and care about them, and we want to do it right, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm glad just talking to you that it resonated with you because you know this could also very easily go the other direction where it's like, look what they did to the Milestone characters.
Mm.
Like they put them through hell, but somehow we were able to figure out a way to make that work and to make it resonate and to make the emotion come clear. And I'm like I said, I'm so proud to be a part of this.
You should be, bro. Like it. One, just I feel so close to this book because I followed each of your careers so closely these last,
Mhm.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Um, but like I've read your writing. I've read all of your writing. Okay, I've read most of your writing. I didn't read some stuff. but but like just watching you grow in the craft, right? Like
Mhm.
bringing those emotions out, like just being more confident as a scripter, right? Like just there's so much, like, and
Mhm.
it's not just you, right? Nick went from the dude like drawing static fan art to like, all right,
Yeah.
we'll throw you on this book because we like your visual style
Mhm.
to basically like Nick is going to be the guy in the room to say no, static wouldn't do that, and everybody's like, yeah, you're
Right.
right,
Yeah.
you know,
And he didn't even draw on this book. He just the writer.
right,
Crazy.
right, like crazy, crazy. And even Stephanie's part, right? Like
Yeah.
Stephanie is the ultimate nerd, right?
Yeah.
Like it's funny because of all these accusations that people have for women in the industry just kind of getting placed, whatever. I don't know what they think happens, right?
Mhm.
But Stephanie like wrote the book on comics and then wrote it again. And then even, her segment, like just going deep cuts. Like
Yeah.
Bronze Tiger, Bronze Tiger is the one that has to like deliver these
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
And it's like, bro,
It's
like
crazy.
it's crazy. This book plays so well to each of your strengths, but each of you is just so much better. Like that's it's wild. It's wild to see. It's fun to
Thank you,
witness.
man. I
Hey, no
appreciate
problem.
that.
No problem at all. So anyway, the new history of the DC universe, the Dakota Incident, is out. It is amazing. It's, it feels like a great bookend type deal, but it also is a start of something new, like High School Musical. You know, is that's where that some I don't know lyrics just live in my head, but yeah, it feels like there's the ground is fertile for
Yes,
something to come
absolutely.
from this, right? So I got to ask, if you had to pick one of these characters, you know, it's like, all right, you're in the room with whoever you need to be in the room with. Who do you want for your ongoing? Of course.
Yeah, man. It's static. It's always been you, static. That's who I would absolutely love to write. Of course, I don't have really any control over that, but
Right.
if I got that offer, it would be yes before they even finished asking. Um, I would absolutely love that. And I think it would fit just trajectory wise, like we've been talking about as well.
Mm.
Like I've got so many weird ties to Milestone, right? Even before I even got into comics, we were almost born on the same day. Like it would be another serendipitous thing that we can come together again and usher in this new era. I would absolutely love that. But at the end of the day, too, I'll do anything Milestone. I always want to come back to it in whatever capacity possible. Another little fun fact, I meant to tell you this earlier when you were talking about my story.
Mm.
Um, Scroll to it. I don't remember what page it's on, but the page where they show everybody's signature on the
Yes.
document. This came through. This was not a plan. It happened just like the day of. This happened literally like a week ago. I
Hmm.
guess for you guys listening, that would be the end of January is when this happened for us, like a couple days before it went to the printer. Um, we were going back and forth on if we were going to have the signatures on the page or not, and we decided yes, we would. And then Marquise in the email chain, our editor Marquise was like, "You guys each want to take a character and sign their signature, and we'll put it on the page." And we were like, "Yeah, absolutely." So
Dope.
I did icons, which is the first one, and we wrote their government name. So
Yep.
Augustus Freeman, Joe Illidge did hardwares, Nick did statics, and Steph did rockets. And I know you can barely see it; it's very small, but like that's all of our individual handwriting.
What's hilarious is now that you pointed out, I could tell.
Actually, let me show you too. But yeah,
Okay.
finish. Keep finishing.
Yeah, no,
I'm listening.
yeah, no, I can tell. Like, I've got Nick's signature on quite a few things. Like, I can tell that's
Yeah,
his handwriting, right? Like, and same for Steph.
yeah.
I probably wouldn't have picked out yours
I have
because,
horrible handwriting, so I had to take a minute to actually craft this signature.
but yeah, nah, that's dope. That's
So let me show you this. So in my trusty Moleskin Milestone Initiative notebook that they gave us, I still take notes in this thing to this day. I practiced Augustus Freeman's signature, and I wanted to feel what was hard for me was again, I have horrible handwriting, but this is a man of gravitas,
uh-huh.
right? I can't mess that up. So I was like, what can I do that'll make his signature feel unique to him, both as Augustus Freeman, but also as a Terminian, like someone who can fly, someone who is larger than life. And I landed on this. I don't know if it's backwards for you guys or not, but yeah, it's particularly I like this F because it kind of gets a lifted feeling. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah, I did. It took me like an hour to figure out how I was going to do this, but I was like, it was another call to action when Marquise was like, "You guys want to write the signatures?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm dropping everything and I'm going to start working on this."
That's dope.
Man, that was a dream come true as well.
That's dope. I'm not jealous of your milestone initiative Moleskin notebook at all. Guess it's my turn. It's fine.
Yeah,
But nah, that's dope. Like for you guys to literally leave your mark, leave your signatures
yeah.
on this book, like that's cool. That's cool. Now, there was one other Easter egg you dropped on me in the DM, so we can probably talk a little bit about it now.
Oh, yes, yes, I
Because
remember.
because I was
Yeah,
I was a little peeved, right?
yeah,
Like, and I have a love hate relationship with these cultural anthologies, as we call
yeah,
them,
yeah.
right? But DC Power is the dope one of
Right.
all of these anthologies that we get. And 2026 rolls around and I'm looking at solicitations and there is no DC Power on the list. Not only that, DC didn't even tell anybody there were Black History Month variants this year, but they are there. Torrin Clark
Mhm.
did a set. Funny enough, he did the set for DC and for Marvel this year,
Wow.
which
Okay.
that's a lot of Black History Month to have on your shoulders. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's the opposite of we are not a monolith.
that is crazy. But yeah, so I was a little upset. Like, yo, we don't get a DC Power like at all.
Yeah,
That's crazy. And you
yeah.
dropped a bomb on me. What is this bomb?
Yeah. I did another interview earlier and I was like, I don't know if I should actually say this, but it's too late. I already said it in that one, so I'll say it in this one. Up until probably when New History of the DCU was ending, Mark Waid's one, this book was gonna be a DC Power book. Um, but and this is a decision that came from up top. Like it seems like from a marketing standpoint, and from like I said, how this book, the theme really is integration and moving forward with these characters in the DCU. It seemed that having the new history of the DCU title card would add a little bit more validity to the 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 realness of this book, right? That would take it away from just being a February exclusive, even though it's still coming out in February. But everyone knows DC Power. They know that name means something different.
Yeah.
So I think the logic behind it is adding it to almost like an epilogue to Mark Waid's book that just got through explaining the entirety of the DC universe. This before having this before the name the Dakota Incident adds a layer of like, no, this is real. This is canon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now having read it, because I know I can tell even when I DM'd you that you were feeling like, I don't know. How do you feel? How do you feel now having read it?
Now, having read it, it makes sense. The title change absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you're right. If this were a DC Power book, I was gonna buy it. I was always gonna buy this book. I was always gonna buy
Yeah.
all 5 covers of this book. If there's a retailer incentive, I would have bought that too.
Yeah.
Right. But I absolutely would have bought it and been like, all right, well, guess this is the last of Milestone. Right. Like, because unfortunately, that's been the track record. We get the DC Power anthology. There's a lot of cool stories, a lot of
Yeah.
cool creators that we don't necessarily hear from a lot, at least
Right.
not with big two characters. But the last, especially coming off that last one, because we had the Power Company and the Power
Power
Company
company.
Recharged, and it
Yeah.
was like it felt like it was building to something that
Yeah.
never came. And so I
Yeah.
feel like DC Power kind of lost goodwill in that way. So it was like if the communication was going to be, hey, Milestone's going to continue after this,
Hmm.
it probably is best to disassociate it from DC Power.
Yeah.
But Curtis King Jr., if you are listening, I when this book is collected, you know, I hope it's a hardcover. I don't know how we're doing 40-page hardcovers, but I mean, we've
Shoot, I'll take it.
IDW does it all the time, actually. Right?
Yeah. And also you could also do that hardcover for Mark Waid's new history of the DCU came out real fast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I don't know, you can do one in 6 months that has our book at the end of it, like that would
True.
work. That would
True.
work.
True. I don't know. I love, and I don't even know if Curtis did that DC Power logo, but that is some of the best spine design with the red,
Yeah.
yellow, and green
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
the
It is.
DC Power branding. Like,
Absolutely.
and as long as we get a hardcover, I can do a custom dust jacket myself.
Yeah.
Kind of kind of needed to stand with the other three on the
Yeah.
shelf. But
Yeah.
hey, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how you do that, but it just is. I'm selfish because I
Yeah.
have a general DC shelf and I have
Hmm.
a black shelf. It's not
Yeah.
segregated. It's just, it's, that's just how I had set up my room. I thought it was
Yeah.
fun that way. And so I need my new history, the Dakota incident, to fit with all the other milestone stuff over there. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was cool. Like when you told me that, I was like, okay. I was still like, yeah, I don't know. I
I
like
could
it.
tell. I could tell
Yeah.
in the DMs. You were like, yeah, whatever.
Like the reason you gave makes sense, but I don't know. I don't know. But nah, after reading it, it absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
And especially if there's going to be a path forward,
Yeah.
like it makes sense in the story, it makes sense in the meta narrative.
Mhm.
It just makes sense. So that was a good call. Shout out to whoever in editorial made that decision.
I
But
will say though, like just as a title stands on its own, DC Power, the Dakota Incident, that goes hard.
it
That
just
does go
it
hard.
goes hard. Like it really does. Like I don't like DC Power is just a great name. I mean, I guess it's
Yeah.
terrible for search engine optimization, but that just it goes hard. So
Yeah.
we'll see how they do next year. I don't know. I don't know, but it just also just with it's unfortunate, but we're in the second year of this administration, and
Yeah.
there's been quite the attack on you know I guess other people would call it DEI, but it's just been like an attack on like anything remotely catering to minority groups.
Yeah.
And so it felt like the 1-2 punch kind of felt like, all right, we don't get DC power.
Mhm.
There's no press release for these variant covers. We also didn't get Marvel's voices this year.
Yeah,
Like, and so it just felt like the industry was like, we're done catering to y'all.
yeah,
And I was like, oh,
I can see that.
that felt like
Yeah,
a door slamming shut. It was
yeah,
weird as a fan. But hey, we're still here, still alive and
yeah.
kicking, you know?
I hope you feel different now, at least with this
Yeah,
on
no,
this
for
side of things.
this book for sure.
Yeah,
Nah, this book is amazing. This book is amazing. And like I said, you guys, I don't know how y'all pulled it off, but you pulled it off. Like
thank you,
everyone did
thank
their
you.
best work and made this an amazing book.
That
So
that means a lot, man. That's really what we were. That's all we were trying to do is like steward these characters into the right direction. Um, and like you said, like we all have a kinship with these
mhm,
characters. I think, like I said, that's the most important aspect of this. I think is that they brought together four individuals that, and including Marquise and Brittany as well for our editors, but they brought in four individuals that like we don't just want Milestone, we need Milestone, and we are now in a position to bring it back. We're going to give you 1,000%. You know, like I said, this felt like more than anything in my career so far. This felt like a responsibility. You know, and that I'm going to be chasing that high for a minute, man. That's how this is how it should feel. Not to diminish anything I've done prior, because everything has been great. I've
yeah,
loved everything I've worked on to this point, and I'm very fortunate to work on some of my favorite characters of all time. But this, because just the history of Milestone and what it meant to not just comics, but just the world, to see a company like that exist, to be a wrinkle in the tapestry of that fabric that's positive, at least the conversation I'm having with you is a positive one. Like that means the world to me, honestly.
yeah. Nah, it shows. It shows. You've written two Phil Lamar characters. That's amazing, right?
That is crazy. You're right.
Right. But
And very different octaves too.
right,
Man.
right. Very, very different. So I'll ask, outside of your own 10 pages,
Yeah.
who had your favorite story?
Oh man. Steph's.
Mm,
Steph's. And I'll tell you a story too. And when you talk to her, she can probably tell you this. When we were having weekly meetings or whatever, or bi-weekly meetings for like 4 or 5 months before we actually started turning in outlines or writing, right? When we got the call to turn in our outlines, it was probably late August, early September. And Steph turned hers in first. And I opened up the email and I opened up her document and I read it. And you know that meme where it's the guy playing video games and then like he locks in?
uh-huh.
That was my lock-in moment for this book. When I felt the responsibility prior, but when I saw what she turned in, I was like, no, 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 no. I gotta step my fucking game up because this shit is incredible.
Right.
And even the way that it was written, just as an outline, like it was so good,
Mm,
right? Because an outline is not written for anyone but your editor to approve you to go to script. But it was still the way that everything was structured. I was like, oh, this is what we're doing. I got to step up. I got to step up to the plate. And I credit Steph's story as like for as good as my story may be, it is because I felt the pressure, the good pressure to step up to the plate and live up to what this book was going to be, you know? So absolutely Steph's, but everybody's was good again, because we all crafted this together.
yeah.
It was just how our individual voices were going to come through each individual story, you know?
Yeah, nah, that's facts. And yeah, yeah. I have to ask Steph to send me a script. I've never seen a Stephanie Williams script,
Yeah,
but
she's great.
like the
Her
stories
stuff
always
is
hit hard.
they do.
Like always. I think my favorite moment on a page from Stephanie still is from that Nubia coordination special.
Mm,
And there's the moment where like Nubia basically stops a mother from being sexually assaulted in an
yes.
alley, and the daughter is there to witness it. And the daughter just kind of like, when she realizes it's Nubia that's saving her, like she has
Yeah.
this moment like, oh wow, mommy, look. And she doesn't say it. She literally just says like, mom, look. And it's like all it, and Daryl Banks has a lot to do with this as well because the way he depicts the scene. but it's like, wow, she looks like me. She's got big hair. She's brown.
Mhm.
Like, and that's my favorite Stephanie Williams moment on a page. But yeah, she's an encyclopedia, but like
Yeah,
all her books feel like the most nerdy thing ever and a warm hug. Like
absolutely.
it's crazy.
And what's cool about her story too, in this is like we had discussions about like she's usually not so action heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this whole story, her whole story was action. She's got two double page spreads in a 10-page story, but she earns it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like like you mentioned earlier, like in a weird way, Bronze Tiger is the protagonist of her story.
Right.
It's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
It is.
I will say you mentioned the thing with Black Lightning on my page.
Mm-hmm.
That was absolutely inspired by what she did with Bronze Tiger. When I had in her outline,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, I need to do something. Again, going back to how this needs to feel very connective to the
Mm-hmm.
DC universe, I need someone else outside of our milestone characters to kind of have a moment of like, yeah, this is not as good as it can be. I'm gonna help you do your thing your way or whatever. And for me, that was Black Lightning, and I absolutely got that inspiration, that good pressure from Steph.
Yeah. Nah,
Yeah,
it's and there are two very poignant moments. Like
thank you.
this book is full of amazing stuff. And I could talk about it all night, but listen, man, this man's got more amazing comic books to write. I got kids to raise. So we'll put a pin in it. We'll have Morgan on several times in the future, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
You know, so because I'm sure, the next Green Lantern event's got to be coming up soon, right? Like,
Hey man, we got some cool stuff coming down the pike. I'm really excited.
dope.
I'm very, very excited.
Dope. Well, listen, like I said, at the time of this recording, I have no idea how you guys are going to hear this. I'm probably going to chop up some of this and put it in one video and then put the full interview somewhere else. But I'm glad you stuck around to the end. And yeah, like I said, more from Morgan Hampton coming soon. Go grab the new history of the DC universe, the Dakota Incident. It's on sale right now. I'm hoping that by the time you hear this, it's sold out at the distributor level and they sent it back for a second printing and they got Nicholas Draper Ivy to do the second printing cover.
That would be dope.
Right, right. I'm hoping that those are all things that have happened by the time you hear this recording. But hey, until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.